Okay, Google Earth Engine, 4 dummies by dummies. Does anyone know about Google Earth Engine? Anyone have any preconceived?
I wasn't there, but didn't Dave Michelson at NEMAT talk about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, does anyone remember what he said? Good, so we're all starting from 0. Excellent.
Well, it does really fast, right? Like it's just sort of.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
on their machine so that everything happens so fast.
That is true, and it is very fast.
Code, lots of code.
Yes, good memories. Okay, it's fast and it requires coding. It's very important. So first of all, Google Earth Engine combines multi-petabyte catalog of satellite imagery. Petabytes we'll get into a little bit more. And it goes back 40 years. I covered that a little bit in the 4D stuff. That's for how long about we've had satellite imagery. And it's really good at processing large data fast. So think of Google Earth as like your exploration video game sort of thing. Google Earth Engine is your analysis. I wasn't able to find too much on its origin story, but I just think it's Google trying to do the positive PR thing. Like, hey, we're trying to help the world and save the rainforest, and this is our platform to do that. So that's all I know. So yeah, we were talking about significant figures. Has anyone ever learned about megabytes, gigabytes? And do you have any like reference points, or anyone else either, that might help situate people as to how big a certain amount of information is, like a megabyte?
There's a great video called Powers of 10, which I forget exactly but it starts out with like a grain of sand and then goes out to the universe and then back down to a grain of sand and then I think even goes into the micro scale. Because you've not only got like terabytes and petabytes, which are vast, but then also the nano, micro, pico, the tiny, yeah.
So Google Earth Engine again says they're operating on petabytes or petabytes, protecting the animals. Here's a little bit about where that figures into everything, and just highlighted one thing in particular. Oh boy, and this is a couple years dated. But yeah, all the information contained in all US academic research libraries would be 2 petabytes worth of information. Wow. And again, Earth Engine is operating on who knows how much, 5, 10. And yeah, this is sort of cool for your general trivia on large bytes. Okay, so how does this exist? The primary satellite they're using is one that's been running around the Earth for about 20 years now, weighs 5,000 pounds, and it's 444 miles up, and it is Landsat 7. So that's the bulk of the data that they're generating. The imagery or data that comes in, like you were talking about in your presentation, is a little bit ugly because of cloud interference. It goes in tracks like this. I think we also saw the track thing with the, what was it, NCDOT plane imagery from the, or no, this was a side project. Anyways, what this means is that you have to compose the imagery over time to make it look good and to have it make any sense. It is raster data, and it is 30 by 30 meters, so not too precise. Anyways, how do you start it up? It's really easy. Just go to Google Earth Engine and get going. So, like Karen was saying, you gotta know some basic stuff, coding, huge, and know what data sets you're using. So, first of all, the data sets. Hold on to this and click on these. So, I think Google Earth Engine does a really good job of breaking down their data that is available to you, because they have a lot. So, here here are some of the examples. I think they've got 12 of these. They take a while to atmospheric data. Very cool. Awesome. And then they go through the satellites as well. Who's generating what data? Yeah, they do have some high-res stuff, so that's great. And then you can also browse by tag. So if you're someone like me and you want to see night imagery, they've got 4 data sets under this tag that can help you out. And we'll get into this a little bit later. Any questions so far? Any compliments?
Your hair looks great.
Thank you. Took a long time. So those are your data sets. The coding, I don't know, I just thought this was a fun fact. There's a coder from back in the day. Who here has a background in coding? I forget. Beginning or something. Yes.
Very small.
And what platforms have you used?
Mostly C++.
Nice. Is there anything you can tell us about coding? Like if we were going to try to get into coding tomorrow, what is it? Why should we care?
You should make sure you put semicolons where they belong because that will ruin your entire code.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about carrots? The carrots.
Yeah. So the characters really matter. Unfortunately now with coding, as I'm sure you've seen, it does correct you and it'll take you right to the source of where your code's wrong, but you gotta get it right. So, anyways, this is what Google Earth Engine looks like. Here is where your code is gonna go. Here are a bunch of their pre-existing codes. And here's where, we'll get into this a little bit later, but yeah, so coding has been the bane of my existence. I used Google Earth Engine for our Puerto Rico Cuba project, and it took a really long time. So if I were to give you any recommendations, it would be contact a nerd. I contacted Dave at NEMAC. Google stuff. Get to know JavaScript. That's the platform they're using. So if there's any way you can do that, maybe by Code Academy or yes.
So are you saying that JavaScript houses the code and the code is called something different or not?
I'm not an expert, but I believe that this would be in JavaScript format.
Okay, so the
It's
language. Okay,
But
thank you.
yeah. So,
Do you know
Good question.
how many different codes are there? I know that like everyone keeps talking about Python. Is
How
that
many
like,
different languages?
well, yeah, like is that a form of JavaScript or are they completely 2 different things?
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's complicated. I mean, it depends, like there are scripting languages for proprietary software. There are languages that exist but no one uses anymore. There are some that are like only used by academics. I mean, hundreds. That's
Do
it as a
they-
guess, but
do they serve different functions?
oh yeah.
So you can do one thing in one language that you could not do in a different language.
And is JavaScript or Python, which one is like Mandarin or English? Like what's the generally spoken?
I
They're tonal.
Watch out on the fancy days.
I would say that JavaScript is the most widely used for things that are happening on websites, like that are being served up through a browser. But Python, I've heard Python called the minivan of coding languages. It's not the fastest, it's not the sleekest, it doesn't have the best mileage, but you can use it for just about everything. Like a lot of software now, like QGIS and ArcGIS or ArcGIS Pro allow you to do customized scripting in Python. So it's multi-use tool. We need to keep going.
Grass use
Grass
Python?
was Python.
Oh boy.
That's why I can.
So yeah, watch out for coding. Avoid it if you can. Anyways, there are resources online. I found a number of helpful videos. Again, just Googling it is very helpful. And apparently they have an annual training in Mountain View, California, if you'd like to make that.
Or Google Earth Engine?
Yes, coding, API, I think they cover everything. I don't know over how many days. So, I do want to show you guys how I built the Puerto Rico map. Where did I just Google? Sorry. Because this is one I did over and over again. It's one I'm pretty comfortable with. So, here we are. So yeah, all you gotta do is go to code.googleearthengine.whatever, type it in. I by the way, in this bar, I have some of my saved images, so just to show you what they're gonna look like.
We might have to
Speed it up.
for the
Go for the goal. Okay.
condensed.
Okay, here's the condensed version.
Just so you know, I think, are you muted? So if it is recording, it might not be recording sound.
Oh,
It should be getting
Maybe.
the microphone.
Okay.
Because we've done this before where the people have muted their own.
Sure, oh yeah, mute your computer, definitely.
so again, you can search by satellite, by topic, then you import the code. That's not what I wanted to do. Hey, come on. Hold on. Give me a chance here. This worked really well on my own.
It's like trying to parallel park when your parents are in the car.
Good. So basically, you just search something. It's really great. You can find it pretty easily, and this would be the code. The code jumps right over. I think you might remember this from Dave's presentation, but it's it auto-populates, or you can copy it from somewhere else if you have pre-existing code. So, oh heavens! Come on, friend. And yeah, like Kate was saying, you have got to get it ready.
So this question is for whomever can answer. What is so what I'm noticing like between this and some other program is it's not, this one's delaying, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
This one's showing you the code versus displaying the code versus, these other programs are essentially doing the same thing, like adding a layer, but they're not displaying the code. So what is the advantage, or I guess
What's the advantage?
why is this one choosing to display it?
I can maybe take a swing at
Sure.
that. Cool. So there are hardcore computer nerds who would much rather just be typing all the time and never picking up a mouse. I remember reading a discussion between this guy I went to college with, and they were like joking about how hardcore are you? I don't think I've touched my mouse in 6 months or 6 weeks. Like if they can do things through commands, even things like moving a file from one directory to another, where you and I might click or drag, they feel that it's more efficient. And then once you're doing this, you can automate a bunch of stuff. A lot of what people do in Python is to write a program that'll do something so that you don't have to do repetitive tasks. And there's just a category of engineers who would prefer to interact with the software. It's like they're talking directly to the software and can give it these very precise, rather than clicking and dragging a rectangle, here you're actually putting in the coordinates.
Yeah.
And I think they're just, and there are people who can live in both worlds, but there are definitely folks who just, I don't know if you've seen, even in the movies, when you have like the hacker who's coding and they're just like, scowling at the screen and typing stuff. You notice they're not actually like clicking and dragging. There's, it's sort of a different paradigm.
So what I wanted to show, I just want to show you all like this before and after. So as you can tell, I went through here and filtered out from September 15th, or September 1st to September 15th, you've got to give it enough time for it to collect enough satellite imagery. If I did like September 1st to the 4th, it would not generate any image at all. So if we change this date range to a little bit later on down the road, which would be after Hurricane Maria, so October 1st to the 30th, it's going to be tough to notice the difference because we just adjusted a little bit, but I was able to see the difference here in lights. And again, if I could pull this up for you, the before and afters, that would be really cool. But anyways, another thing that you can do that I think is pretty important. Yes.
That was like, there are unsafe changes, and then you hit yes. Like,
Yeah.
Like, do you want to continue? I thought there should have been more.
So, why? Hold on, I'm just trying to see why this isn't running faster. So San Juan before the storm. San Juan after. Anyways, you can save these scripts. That's really great. See that difference? Cool. And then when I talked with Dave, the big question I had for him is, how can I get these images or maps out of Google Earth Image or Google Earth Engine? And so he actually just wrote me this code because he's good at that, which you then, again, I really just took his information, ran that. Once you run that export code, you're basically telling this to export it to my Google Drive. And then you're going to see the taskbar lights up and it says, oh, cool, would you like to run this? Which basically means if you've got the correct file type, we'll run it and send it right to your drive, to your specified point. And that's what this looks like. You can send it to a specific folder. You can name it whatever you want. You really got to get it right. Like if you don't get the dimensions or the zoom or the pixel numbers, whatever, it's going to show up as an error, which is what I got most of the time. And then once you have it in your drive, it's a special type of image that I found didn't really cooperate too nicely with Esri, which is why we had a bunch of screenshots. Sorry. So anyways, it's difficult, but it's pretty cool. I think it's most functional for large swaths of land, like if you're looking at changes in forestation, if you're looking in large flood events, or if you're looking at nighttime imagery. So anyways, that's a little bit about Google Earth Engine. Any other questions? Yes.
Could you have exported that without a code?
Do you
Like,
mean if I just right click on it? Is that what you mean, like? Oh.
No, I mean, when you said you entered the code to get the file to export,
Yes.
can you operate that or run that same function but without entering a code?
Like, is there a button for it?
From what I can tell, you have to have this code in there so
Okay.
then it shoots it over to your tasks bar.
Huh.
Yeah. So yeah, you really, as I was saying there, you have to be good at code. You have to know how to make it do it.
So can you explain just what are, it seems like above you have this ribbon of the
Yes.
3 blue headings and what are, it's like 3 different menus kind of, what are you,
Yeah.
is there a vocabulary here?
Yeah, there definitely is. I don't speak it, but I can tell you generally what these things are. So you've got, over here is like source material.
Okay.
Assets could be your stuff, like the market things that you could be uploading. It has to be a specific file type.
Okay.
I think CSV, something zipped, or shapefile. They've got pre-existing stuff. Like they've got pre-existing scripts that, you know, again, if you know their language or know specific words you're looking to use, they've got that there. This is just code stuff.
Like, could you have found an export script already written, do you think?
Yes.
Like, you're saying this is like a library of scripts, kind of?
Yes. Yeah. So that did exist over here.
Uh-huh.
But again, I'm so new at this stuff. I was just like, no, it's like they didn't give it in like a nice copy paste. They run you through some steps and I was like, okay, you lost me at number. So yeah.
Okay.
Call a nerd. This is just scripts that you run, reset, whatever. And then this is cool. This is this would normally appear, I think, on the left-hand side, but this is your inspector that tells you, what your coordinates are. Tells you all and man, you can go down on the information on these things, like way down the rabbit hole. And a lot of this information can help inform your script. So for example, for me, I needed to know what coordinates I wanted to center the map on and that's all over here.
Okay.
The tasks is what you're downloading, uploading, and the console I have not really used, but over in this column as well, it will help you correct your errors in the code.
A few more minutes.
So I know that it exports it in a TIFF file. Do you know what the application outside of Google Earth Engine would be for TIFF files? Rather, or can they really are they only compatible with Google Earth Engine?
You can also, by the way, export this in a different file format.
Okay.
I don't know how many options there are, but you could. So there's that. Sorry.
No.
Based on the
Encourage you to answer
forums that I was reading, even from getting into ArcGIS, they recommended exporting it as TIFF, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And TIFF has been around for years and years and years as a raster format. It was actually, even back in the day, people would use it for like photographs, just to have a digital version of a photograph before JPEGs became the dominant standard.
Can I show one more thing?
Yeah.
So,
just finish answering the question about TIFFs. So, and you see that says GeoTIFF.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like, remember how we took that image from the historic map and did the georectification? The nice thing about a GeoTIFF is it's already got its coordinates associated with the image. So it's not an image that then you have to figure out how to place it in, but it has its location on the planet baked into it. But I guess there were some challenges with getting that particular one to go in ARC. I'm a little tempted to try and bring it into QGIS when I show QGIS, but I don't think we'll have time.
A little bit about, well, maybe the black hole rendering as well as lying with maps. So I could tell a very different story about Puerto Rico at night with this little box. Here is some, I don't like it right there though. Come on. No, I don't like it there either. So, for example, we've got the band range, I believe. Let's crank it up to 100. Let's see. So there's a lie. What was it at? 40. Let's crank up some gamma radiation. Right? It changes things a bit. And finally, you can play with the opacity, which I think is pretty helpful. So you could see your base map, depending on what you were measuring. So this stuff can be manipulated.
Yeah. And I think the black hole is a good analogy. Like what the bands that the satellite is detecting.
Mm-hmm.
How do you faithfully represent that? And if you decide to, it's like the picture of the black hole, or you see other pictures of these amazing formations in space. And they're all colorful and they look, but basically the people who are creating that image have decided what color certain wavelengths are going to look like, and so.
Anyways, I wanted to show you guys some of the other stuff, but this is from the VIIRS satellite, the nighttime stuff. I believe you talked about Marble.
Oh, Marble, yeah.
And so there's a bit of, that's where that's coming from.
Okay.
That satellite's been up since 2011. So that's how far your nighttime visuals are going to go back. What else can I tell you? Yeah, that's Google Earth Engine. Simple. Pretty easy. I'd recommend it. Yeah.
Couple quick thoughts. I'm seeing you do this, and like repeatedly, I'm wanting you to have a bigger screen. Did you do most of your work? Don't.
Oh yeah, it
apologize.
was
Bigger
terrible.
than this?
Yeah.
Or at least higher resolution. Like I would want everything there to anyway. Did you ever try using it on a higher resolution screen or?
No, I didn't.
I just think it might make for a better experience if you could see more of these things. But that would be my preference. And to get back to something you were saying about how your question about whether you actually needed to use code, whether there was just like a menu or a button you could push to export. I remember talking with a guy at a conference. He was doing redistricting stuff, and he's using QGIS, but he's totally interacting with it through Python. And he was asking me about whether it's possible in QGIS to do this certain thing, and I was like, well, there's a button on the toolbar. He's like, oh yeah, I don't use the GUI. The GUI is GUI, it stands for Graphical User Interface. Like, he doesn't even think to like use the buttons you can click on, because he wants his stuff to be able to be replicable. And so if he figures out a sequence of things that works nicely, he wants to just, boom, he can run the code or modify it. Yeah, there was another thing. I'll actually show the atlas function, which lets you do, it's a nice way to be able to make a whole string of maps, and the software will do it for you. But and you can do it by clicking on a series of buttons and typing things in rather than writing code. But he's totally through a mindset of writing code.
It's pretty cool to just think about the infrastructure that has to exist in order for this to go on, and the different wavelengths they're catching on the electromagnetic spectrum that can get down to the precision of different species of plants. You know, I don't know how you parse out the green, but.
I have a question, and this is much larger than just Google Earth Engine, but as you mentioned, the infrastructure that makes all this happen, and we're talking about this within a sustainability studies program, I'm curious about the sustainability. Like, what is the carbon footprint of the ability to do all this? Like, to say that we have petabytes of data stored somewhere, it's data warehoused in data centers, running computers 24 hours a day. Like,
yeah.
It's cool that we can use this for some kind of like sustainability application, but is it all completely undone by the carbon footprint of itself?
It's relative. What I learned in my space paper is that all the space stuff we're doing right now is still at a point where like you compare that to transportation or air traffic or stuff, and it's like, oh, that's, you know, yeah, it's bad, but compared to other stuff, whoa, we're really screwing up. And then petabytes, I don't know how many servers or how many refrigerators that takes to store that effectively.
I do know that a lot of the companies like
Barges.
Google have tried to locate their server farms in places that are powered by hydroelectric or wind or solar.
I know Iceland is facing a lot of problems with like big tech companies coming there, and they're trying to basically limit it. There's like a whole debate in Iceland right now.
Huh.
Do you have thermal storage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or powered?
Yeah, I can't,
Also, it's cooler, so like less.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't comment with any kind of informed opinion about, I think it's a great question, but there's also the question about sustainability, just the business model. How long will Google make this available to well-meaning people like Andrew for free, anyone with a Google account? And that's one of the things that I think Dave brought up, maybe when you and I spoke with him, is that there are other things that people have loved that Google has put out, and then Google decides to pull the plug. So just the sustainability, as Andrew has alluded to, it's a tremendous resource, but if it's not helping their bottom line, the stockholders tell them that they should reconsider how they're doing it, it may go away. Or it may get a price tag associated with it.
It just makes me think of when, what was the guy's name from the climate lobby group that came and talked about the carbon tax?
Jim Tolmer.
And his point about like there being no price signal on things, like we literally have no idea of the scale of what the impact is, because to us it's just kind of pointing and clicking, and it's just right there. I mean, it's not even plugged in. It's just like not using any energy.
Get in now and download everything at this point in time, just in case. Yeah.
I would
It'll
go,
all fit right here.
I don't know if your night light imagery picked up the bioluminescence that Vieques is so famous for.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
I don't, well, again, these are 30 by 30 meter
Yeah,
images, but that's a big event.
yeah,
You might have
So
to
what's the
really
time frame?
disturb a lot of water.
right.
Doesn't it occur at a specific time though?
I think it's pretty regular, but I don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
it's pretty regular and ongoing.
I think we could talk more, but we're gonna have to